You're listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, along with former England fast bowler Steve Harmison for another busy show. England have named their squad for the first test against India next week with no place for Matt Potts. We'll hear from selector Luke Wright. Former Australian fast bowler Jason Gillespie will join us to look ahead to this week's World Test Championship final at Lord's, and we'll also discuss South Africa's chances with their former fast bowling great Allan Donald. We'll hear from outgoing New Zealand head coach Gary Stead and the man who'll replace him, South African Rob Walter, and we'll bring you the final word. So plenty to come over the next hour. This is Following On. Right, England's 14-man squad has been announced for the first test against India, with Gus Atkinson missing out with a hamstring injury. Also, no place for Matt Potts, while Bryden Cast, Chris Woakes and Jacob Bethell are all recalled. Plenty to talk about, Harmy, but the burning question for me, and it's not important, but it's still burning, is why have England taken to naming squads and teams so early? I get, the 24 hours before the game so the players know where they stand, but this just seems, I mean, it's 12 days before the test. It just seems like a lot can happen in that time.
Yeah, a lot can happen. It seems though they want to do it to stop players playing cricket. It really does. We've seen it leading into the Zimbabwe test where they named the squad like 2 weeks before. Then them two rounds of county championship matches, no bowler played in them, and we looked at it, they're a little bit rusty, or we got injured. So I mean, there's pros and cons to everything. There's clarity of knowing that you're in the squad, and there's nothing, there's no anxiety going into the week before, are you going to get selected? I'm all for picking a team 24 hours out. I'd rather it wasn't made public. Quite happily for it to the players know during their final warm up, their final preparation day that they're playing, and go to bed knowing that they're playing at night. No problem with that. I look at this 40-man squad. I'm happy with it. I think it's a decent squad. I said on H&J, I'm amazed about Matt Potts. I mean, I don't really know where Matt Potts stands in this cricketing world now with England, because they look at him as a white ball player, but they picked the first 50 over team of the summer, and he wasn't in that, and he only played the second one because Jamie Overton got injured and got bust his hand. So he's somebody I think you can hang your hat on to know that he's very, very durable, and you can build a bowling attack around him. So I'm struggling with that omission, but the rest of them, they're under bowled. But I like that Woakes and Tongue have played this week in the Lions game. Have a week off and be ready for it. It looks like England's bowling attack will be Woakes, Cars, either Overton or Tongue, probably Tongue, and Bashir with Ben Stokes. I don't mind that. I think that's quite a very powerful unit with Jofra to come later on. So I think all in all, I'm quite happy with where England's squad's at when it comes to the name point of view. So the names on the sheet. I just worried that our bowlers in a position to hit the first test match, ground run and bang, with overs, momentum, confidence, and durability, that if it is flat and India get in and we are bowling in the 91st to 101st over, are we still going to be able to either knock a tail over or do something on a flat wicket, which makes a difference? So they're the concerns I have for this group, but the rest of it, I think it's a good side.
Okay, well, our very own producer Scott Taylor has been talking to England selector Luke Wright, and this is what he had to say about Potts's omission from the squad.
Yeah, look, it's really tough on Potsy. As I said, looking at that, looking at the squad, we wanted that option of varied attack. So it was probably between him and Cookie for that other spare bowler. If we were to lose, a Wokesy, and we just felt that maybe Cookie at the moment has just got the edge with that new ball. But look, it's pretty close. We know what Potsy's all about. I feel for him, missing out. It's not easy for him. He's a great option for us. It's great to have him as a squad bowler in the pack if any injuries happen. But just on this occasion, he's just missed out.
That's England selector Luke Wright talking to talkSPORT's Scott Taylor, who also produces this show and has done for over 4 years. Thank you, Scotty. He also said that Jacob Bethell was very close to making the 11, we spoke about this last week, and I don't know whether you changed your mind. If he is very close and he gets into the 11, where and how, or is it like the Sylvester Stallone? What's that film, The Great Escape, where he has to having his arm broken?
Yeah, the goalkeeper has his arm broken. So was it Hash? Was his name Hash in the Hash? Yeah, Sylvester Stallone. Great Escape, one of my favorite films ever. Escape to Victory, sorry, not A Great Escape.
That's right.
Escape to Victory. But does he play? No, he doesn't. Not for me. The talent is there. I mean, I had somebody try to compare him with the Kevin Peterson one recently, and I just couldn't stop laughing until he fell off my chair. Talking about is this situation the same as what Peterson? No, nowhere near. Everybody in the world knew that Kevin was ready to play international cricket and score hundreds. This lad is very, very talented. He's got a huge future in the game. He hasn't scored a professional 100. So where he goes, I'm not so sure. I wouldn't like to see him just sit in the squad for 5 Test matches. Ollie Pope has earned the right to be number 3 because you didn't bring Jacob back from IPL. You said to Ollie Pope, you're going to bat number 3 against Zimbabwe. So we believe that over the summer you are on number 3. Ben Stokes has got a hell of a lot of trust in Ollie Pope. And all he needed him was to get some runs, and he did. So for me, Pope bats at 3, Bethel misses out. And if anybody has this thought that he's going to be a spin bowler and we play 4 seamers, you're asking a hell of a lot of Ben Stokes' body then. So no, not for me. He waits in the wings. There will be a chance for him somewhere. I just think now it's about managing what cricket he gets in between. So he doesn't just sit basically in a dressing room for 5 days. Watching the top 6 batters perform. So I'm pleased he's in the squad. It's good recognition, but I think it's now important that we make sure he's still playing cricket, he's still hitting balls, and he can potentially get that 100 before he makes his Test match bow in this series. And that, I think, is the challenge for England's management group. But I don't see him playing in it. I think Ollie Pope, number 3, you didn't bring Bethel back. You played Pope against Zimbabwe. And he's backed you up by getting runs, so leave him as it is.
A couple of people have said to me, Harmy, why is Chris Woakes still being, why is he being recalled? I think he's 36 now, and I've been a bit tetchy in my response because I love it for the fact that yes, okay, be obsessed with the Ashes, but make it a healthy obsession, and don't forget that this is the first series in the next cycle of the World Test Championship, and you need to beat India in England. And if Chris Woakes is the best man to do that at Headingley, then don't not pick him because you're obsessed unhealthily with the Ashes in 6 months' time.
100%, totally agree. I mean, you're only going to win the Ashes in 6 months' time if you beat India. You can't just turn it on. And I think you have to build a momentum. You have to build a confidence. You have to bring a mentality of, in any given situation, we can win from everywhere. And that's what Ben and Brendan have done. They've built a noise from inside the camp that no matter what you play on, no matter who you are, we can play our way and beat you. And there's different ways of doing that. And I think what you have with Woakes, the Ashes is one thing. You get a lot of Chris Woakes. This is the thing he's so important for. It's not just the opening bowler that bowls 80 mile an hour and people will say, oh, he's losing a bit of pace. It's not just that. It's not the opening bowler. You're getting the number 8 batter. The number 8 batter who can score 40 or 50, protect the score from 375 to sort of 450 and 475. That's a game changer. And also the experience that Chris Woakes gives, calmness that he has around the dressing room, his ability to be one of the nicest guys. He's one of the nicest fast bowlers I've ever met. Some would argue too nice, but all this becomes a package. And forget that he's 36 years old. He is a very, very, he's a very, very important cricketer, I think, for England, post Jimmy Anderson, post Stuart Broad, because you need somebody to bring it all together. And at times he has, at times he hasn't. But I think now he's just played that Lions game. He's got the 3 wickets. He's seen off Jice well. You know, he bowled really nicely. He Pierce looked as though it was up. And let's be fair, he's not going to knock anybody's head off. It's not 85 mile an hour, but he was outside and inside edge. He was challenging when I watched him in that Lions game, and I thought, you know what? Yeah, he has to play. He has to bring this whole thing together and let the fast lads do what the fast lads things do around him. But there's more to Chris Woakes than just opening the bowling. There's a huge package in there, which is very, very valuable for England.
Okay, let's just hear quickly again from Luke Wright talking about Jofra Archer.
Yeah, Joff's also trucking on really well, actually. The plan for him, he's playing a few second team games. He's getting a few loading up in the second team for Sussex. And then the idea for him is to play for Sussex against Durham, I think on the 23rd, during the first test, actually. So he'll play for Sussex if all things go well. And then if things go well, then fingers crossed he should be available for second test.
That's Luke Wright talking about Jofra Archer verging on full test match fitness again. At some point, Harmy, the cotton wool needs to be wrapped up and thrown away, and he just needs to get out on the park. And I would like to make the point that for anybody who's under the impression that Jofra Archer enjoys the cotton wool treatment, he doesn't. He is very much of a mind, just let me play. Just let me play, and if I break down, I break down. Isn't he?
Yeah, I think he is. I think he is somebody who just wants to be let loose. And we've seen at times he's come back and played in Barbados with his mates when he's not supposed to be. This is a kid that wants to play cricket, and I would like to see him play cricket for England. Hopefully, I think if it hadn't been for that bang on the thumb, an injury, an unlucky injury, we might have been talking about and being excited that Jofra was going to play in this first test. But as it says, and Luke's just said that, second test match is a real possibility. So yeah, that just, I think it just makes that the excitement around this series even more if Jofra is going to be available for Birmingham. So fingers crossed he gets through a couple of Sussex second team games. Can you imagine that? A young kid, you've been playing club cricket, you've been playing under-19 cricket in the week. You maybe played a second team game in the T20s because the T20s are on at the minute. You've rocked up for Horsham first team and played against some overweight fat lad who bowls at 65 mile an hour. And then you're thrown into a second team game, and the bowler from the end is Jofra Archer. Can't be the real one, surely. And then this ball whizzes past your nose as Jofra and his necklaces and his watch come flying towards you. That would not really excite me too much if I was a young second team lad. The thought of playing against him would, but the actual thought of facing him wouldn't, especially with him wanting to prove that he's fit to play against India at Birmingham. So yeah, it might be a difficult week for whoever's playing Sussex second team this week. But fingers crossed that Joff comes through it and he's ready to go because, like I said before, we need to win against India if we stand any chance of beating Australia because of the winning factor, momentum and mentality. And Jofra does enhance that.
The last time Jofra made a comeback in Sussex second 11, he scored 100. Batting at 7, I think he was. Anyway, a reminder that you can... that if you are overseas this summer, you can hear live ball-by-ball commentary of England's Test series against India from the venues. We'll be there on the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel. So make sure that your browser hovers over the talkSPORT app very soon and subscribe. You're listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, along with former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. Next up, we'll turn our attention to this week's World Test Championship final at Lord's and speak to former Australia fast bowler Jason Gillespie. You're listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, alongside Double Ashes winner Steve Harmison, and you can now watch the show on YouTube. If you're not doing that already, just head over to the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel and subscribe. Right, we're talking World Test Championship, and we've been joined by former Australian great Jason Gillespie and coach of the Adelaide Strikers, the Midwest Rhinos, Sussex, Yorkshire, and there's many more that I'm probably missing. But Dizzy, it's World Test Championship that we want to talk about now. We've got lots of individual questions. But first of all, just overall, I'm going to ask Allan Donald this question in just a minute. But despite all of its many and obvious imperfections, what do you make of the World Test Championship? Is it here to stay?
Yeah, g'day guys. Look, I think it certainly is, Manners. I love the concept of a trophy for Test cricket. You know, the ultimate format of the game, a culmination. As you said, yes, there's imperfections. It's not perfect, but I look at it the other way. I think it's better than not having a World Test Championship at all. So I think it's a great concept. And yes, the powers that be will make it better, make it more even spread. I think that's been the criticism a little bit. Some teams play a lot more, others not so much. But be that as it may, I think it's fair to say two very good sides that have had very good World Test Championship cycle are fighting it out at Lords.
Izzy, look, talk about Australia's, ins and outs and what their 11s could be, what their strengths and weaknesses are. They're very, very obviously strong in the bowling department. They've got a decision to make up top, haven't they? Who's going to open the batting? Because if anywhere South Africa can exploit, there's a potential, not a weakness, but somebody that's going to open the batting who's not used to opening the batting. Who do you think it'll be?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Harmy. I think that is the big decision for Australia. They obviously want Cameron Green back in the side. He's had some wonderful success at Gloucestershire this year and playing well. I think what's it's making it a little bit more difficult decision is that Cameron Green's not actually bowling at the moment. I think if he was bowling, then he would probably slot in place of Bo Webster. But I think because it's a one-off test match, I suspect that Australia will go with Marnus Labuschagne. If this was a three-test series, I'd be more inclined to thinking they'd go with Sam Constance. But we know Andrew McDonald and the Australian selectors, by and large, they go with experience. Andrew McDonald in particular loves experienced players and guys that have been there and done that. And I just think the push comes to shove. Just feel that he'll want to back his senior batsman in Marnus Labuschagne in. Yes, it is one spot up the order, but I mean we've seen it. Australia has a history of promoting guys that play in the upper or middle order up to the top. Justin Langer started his career, I think, batting at 3. Shane Watson in the middle order as a all-rounder. Simon Kadich went up to open. David Boone went from 3 to open. So it's over the history, Australia have shown that they can be flexible with their batting order, and that Marnus has certainly got the game to be able to do the job.
Talking of history, Dizzy, Australia had a bit of a snag with their succession planning a few decades ago, when McGrath and Warne and Langer and Hayden, I think, all sort of retired at a similar time. And I'm just looking at this group: Hazelwood, Stark, Smith, Quadra, Nathan Lyon, although Lyon reckons he can play till he's 50. But how long have they got left? This is a I don't know if it's a great team. It's an extremely good one. It's probably the best team in the world. How long have they got together?
Yeah, I would classify them as a great team, Manners, and I think it's a great question that you ask, because there are a lot of guys of very similar ages, aren't they? And you look at the bowling attack; they're all. The guy waiting in the wings, I think we all expect that Scott Boland is probably going to miss out for Josh Hazlewood in this. But Scott Boland's actually older than most of those bowlers, and he's the next bowler, next cab off the rank, so to speak. So, there's certainly that. From a batting perspective, there's a lot of guys well into their 30s. There's going to be a changing of the guard. I think outside of Cameron Green, who's in his early mid-20s, I think the next youngest is probably Travis Head, and he's 30, 31. So it's a good point you make. I still think there's some cricket in a lot of these guys, but I think the Australian selectors are well aware they've just got to start bringing in players over the next 12, 18 months. And Sam Constance is going to be one of those guys. We'll potentially see one or two others come in. So it's going to be interesting times, but Australia certainly needs to be forward planning, because we don't want that scenario that you mentioned where, all these greats of the game, and these guys at the end of their careers are going to be known as greats of not only Australian cricket, but world cricket. They're going to be hard to replace. And the Australian selectors are well aware of that.
As you talk about the game itself and where it's at, it's Lords. You've got obviously plenty of happy memories of playing there.
Yep.
You mentioned the experience that Australia tend to select under Andrew McDonald. How key is that going to be in this game? Because yes, it's a one-off game, but that Lord's slope, what comes with Lord's, it's not an easy place to go and play if you haven't been there before.
No, it's not an easy place to play if you haven't been there, Harmy, as you know. And I think Australia's experience, they'll certainly start as favourites, with all due respect to South Africa. I think South Africa will have to manage a lot of expectation, not only within themselves, but South Africa are known as obviously a very good team that haven't quite nailed it and won those international trophies. So I think there's a lot of expectation from home for the South Africans. They've played some really good cricket over the last couple of years in Test cricket in particular. So I think it'll be a fascinating game. What we expect from Lords, what I'm hearing, Harmy, and you may be able to correct me, is that there's going to be a little bit of grass on that surface and probably aid the seamers. So two fantastic seam bowling attacks. I think the toss could prove quite important in this final.
Yeah, the toss does prove important. I think the weather forecast I think it's going to be, I think this week, leading into the week, is a little bit indifferent. But I think for the game itself, I think that the weather forecast is set fair. So we're probably going to expect some good cricket on what looks. Sometimes at Lords, when you get a green pitch, it goes through. It bounces a little bit more. So that might suit the Australian batters, who are used to playing on more bouncier wickets. But there's one player on the opposition side, and we've played against each other quite a bit, Dizzy, and you look at the opposition and you see that one player that stands out who can be a real thorn in the side. And for South Africa, is that Gillespie Rabada?
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. I think he's a wonderful bowler. I think he's one of the best bowlers that's played the game, to be perfectly honest. I mean, you only have to look at his Test record, and I look at his strike rate. I mean, how many bowlers in the history of the game have got a strike rate in the 30s, or maybe 40 now? I think. I mean, for someone with over 300 Test wickets, that's absolutely extraordinary, and just shows just what a quality bowler he has been for a long time for South Africa. You're absolutely right, Harmy. He's absolute key. The Australian batters, I'll be doing a lot of research on how they can negate his effectiveness. But he's got a good motor. He runs in all day. He bowls with really good pace. He's very disciplined. He's got that extra effort ball. He's a dangerous customer, and the Australians should be very wary of him.
And Dizzy, how are you doing? I mean, it was a difficult time. Pakistan, we've all seen the sort of headlines and the stories that come back. But How are you getting on? Are you looking to get back into what is international cricket? Enjoying some time in South Australia? I'm sure you've been in and around that wine route, which you adore. But how are you getting on, pal?
Oh, thanks, Harvey. Thanks for that. I appreciate you asking that question. Look, I'm going really well. Look, it was disappointing the way things finished up with Pakistan. It's actually given me an opportunity to take stock about what my next move is, what I'm going to be doing at the moment. And I've dabbled in a little bit of coaching. I was with the Aussie A side when the England Lions were out in Australia earlier this year. So that was nice for a little 10-day period, 2-week period, which was really nice. But I certainly don't have any real desire to go back into full-time coaching. I'm happy to explore options in the short form space, but certainly from a full-time perspective, it's not really on my radar. Look, I'm going to be doing a lot of radio commentary over the summer in Australia. We've got the Ashes coming out here, which is very exciting, as you know. So I've got a bit of that. I'm actually hosting a tour group with Carl Hooper later this month to the Caribbean for the West Indies v Australia Test matches and T20s. So you'll see my crew out in the outer with our loud shirts, and we've got some really cool shirts made up with like big Hawaiian shirts with Carl's and my images on them from back when we played. So it's going to be, we'll stand out like a sore thumb. So that'll be a bit of fun. And yeah, then just some media commitments. We'll do that, and yeah, then I'll look at my options, mate. But at the moment, it's just really good to be at home. I'm doing a little bit with our business, Gillespie Sports, here in Adelaide. So That's been a little bit of fun. So yeah, just dabbling in a couple of different things, Harmy. But no, life's really good, mate. Thank you.
Brilliant.
I have to say that that it sounds like you're sorted. I'd leave the coaching
I
alone
would
for a
as
while.
well.
It's
Oh man,
absolutely brilliant.
I do enjoy coaching, but and I have to be completely honest, transparent. The Pakistan experience probably took the wind out of my sails a little bit, and it's just allowed me to take stock. And I don't think I've got the energy to go back into full-time coaching. I was essentially a head coach for 15 years straight, and this is probably my first time where I'm having a bit of an extended break from full-time coaching. So I'm excited by that. I'm excited about the radio comms going into next summer. There's a top end series here in Australia in August. Australia playing South Africa in some one days, so I'll be up there for that with radio, which would be a lot of fun. And then yeah, we'll see where life takes me. But I'm excited by what could be happening. So it's great.
Finally, Dizzy, two things. Your thoughts on the England-India series coming up after the World Test Championship. And also there's lots of celebration and reminiscing the 20-year anniversary of the 2005 Ashes. So your thoughts on those two, and memories?
Yeah, so obviously England-India, I think England quite rightly will start favourites for that. Home conditions, I love the way England are going about their work. I think one thing when the surfaces are very batter friendly, I think England have got obviously a very aggressive batting plan. They've got quite defensive bowling plans. I think they need to probably be a little bit more adaptable and adjustable when the surfaces are favouring bowlers. I think they need to find solutions for that. But the way they're going about it, I think they're really clear. That's one thing I think Brendan McCullum and Ben Stokes have brought to that team is clarity on how they go about it. And yes, they're going to have some ups and downs. I think the nature of the way they go about their work, they're going to have some really good days. They're going to have some stinkers. But I think if everyone's on the same page, they're all singing from the same hymn sheet, so to speak, I think that'll give them the most chance of success. So I think they'll start favourites. India are a better touring side these days, but I still think England have probably got their noses in front of that. Look, 20-year anniversary of the Ashes, one of the greatest series. Harmy and I are both fortunate enough to play in that series, and look, I hope it's a great celebration, and as it should be. England, played well, outplayed us in that series, and deserved that success. It had been a long time coming for England, and as Harmy will attest, they certainly gave it a nudge celebrating, that's for sure.
No, we did. Some of us are still celebrating. I've not stopped drinking. Simon's not stopped drinking, and Huggy's not stopped eating. So we've been in good form on that front. But I'm not saying that was not like any Ashes other, because it was. There was fiery elements to it. The cricket that was played, England won by 2 wickets and 2 runs, won 2-1 in the series. So it just shows you what the series was like. But it was played in such a respectful manner that I think both sides knew that contest was full on. From literally, you'll talk about cricket and say, right, can you win the first hour? Can you win the first session? Can you win the first day? We were probably fighting on over, never mind anything else, and that for me is why the series was so good.
Yeah, no doubt, and it was obviously we got the run on you early at Lords, and but I've said this before. I think I've mentioned this to you. There was just something a bit different about your team that even that first test, it was just more togetherness, and I don't know if that's something you guys spoke about, but there was certainly a more urgency about everything you guys did, from your training sessions to your warm-ups on the day to getting out on the ground when you're out fielding. Quite often, I'll use this example, normally our batters would go out to bat, we'd be out there and England players are still coming out, dribs and drabs, but you guys were all in position, even before our batters had come through the gate. So I don't know if that was something specific that Varney or Duncan had spoken about being ready and being out there, being together or tight-knit as a team. But it certainly was something we noticed, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was a presence. We wanted to. We wanted to have. Yeah, we wanted to have a presence. We wanted to know that we were not intimidated because I mean, I played in many series of the Ashes, and the intimidation factor of the likes of yourself and Brett and Glenn, and I mean the great man. I mean, I still can't believe I'm talking about him in the past tense, but I mean, Ronnie was more of a thorn in the side with a bat in that series than he was with a ball, and he got 40 wickets. I mean, he was just just amazing. It was amazing, especially at Old Trafford when he was batting there. These are have them characters gone out of the game, do you think?
Look, I just think players are so scrutinised, aren't they? Like to the nth degree. Like every little thing that is on the field is seen and heard by everyone, by millions of people. Like you can't fart without the whole world knowing it. You know what I mean? Like it's just you know, everything is just noticed. You know, players can't really say much on the field. You know, banter, whatever we want to call it, but it's just so players are so scrutinised. Every little thing they do. So you know, and I don't blame players for maybe being a little bit bland, for whatever word, because they just don't want to get into trouble. They don't want to get fined or they don't want to get suspended. So they just go, you know what, I'm just going to and even doing media interviews, they, you know, there's sometimes there's not a hell of a lot of personality because the players, I think, are just worried about saying the wrong thing half the time.
Dizzy, enjoy your time in the Caribbean. I know you will, and enjoy the radio work. It's you don't have to worry about makeup or shaving. The radio is definitely the medium to be involved in.
Well, I've got a good face for it, man, so I'm pretty comfortable with that.
Thanks so much for your time. You're listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, alongside Double Ashes winner Steve Harmison, as we continue to look ahead to this week's World Test Championship final. Next up, we'll get the South African perspective, and we'll be joined by former Proteas fast bowler Allan Donald. You're listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, alongside former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. And if you've missed any of the show or you wish to catch up, you can download the podcast from the Following On feed, available from all good podcast providers. Right, we've heard the Australian perspective from Jason Gillespie. Let's get the South African perspective. Lots and lots of questions for great fast bowler Allan Donald. Al, before we get into the nitty-gritty, your overall thoughts about the World Test Championship, for all of its imperfections, and it is far from a perfect tournament. Are you in favour? Are you excited?
Love it. I love it. I think it's a great reward for a hard slog at the end of the year. I know when you talk about imperfections, about how much cricket South Africa has played versus England versus Australia. But I think nonetheless, it's a great reward to be playing a final at a venue that I think that puts any other venue on a different scale. To be playing at Lord's, just the history of it, to have one shot at it for 5 days or for 4 days it's just an amazing stage. And I think that, you know, I know South Africa, here in South Africa, it's buzzing. It's really buzzing. It's buzzing amongst many sportsmen and women. And yeah, we all can't wait. But I mean, it's going to be a great spectacle. And yeah, it's a proud moment for all the players involved.
Alan, you did talk about the inexperience that South Africa have over probably what Australia have. They're probably the favourites going into it. But is that going to work in South Africans' favour? Because when you look at the experience in England, there's quite a lot of them South Africans who have played a lot of county cricket.
Yeah, it's true, homie. I think you know, it's not like a series. You're going into a series. You've got to get it spot on. That's the thing here. That's what gets South Africa in it, because on day one, if you have a shocker and you're not batted well or not bowled well, you could find yourself really chasing the game. You know, so. But you know, as you said, Rickleton's had a taste of county cricket. Mulder has played for Leicester. Rabada's played a bit.
Headingley.
Beddingham has played there. And of course, the other fast bowler that I've got there and I'm keep missing is, of course,
Patterson.
Patterson. Patterson is really probably the most experienced out of all of them, and will know what it's like bowling at Lords, what lengths to find. He's a bit of an enigma, I reckon, because he's fancied by the coach. He knows him. He's not great pace, but boy, does he test your defense. He's a bit of a Vernon Philander. Doesn't miss that area often. But yeah, and then Janssen does what Janssen does. So it's going to be interesting because it opens up. I know South Africa have like to go with Rabada, Janssen, Patterson, and Mulder as those two all-rounders, Janssen, Mulder. So but you feel a bit, I don't know, you know as well as I do, Harmy. Gladstone Small used to tell me in my first month in county cricket, never look down, look up.
Yeah.
That old saying. And overhead conditions is going to be absolutely crucial. So if it's a sunny day, we all know you're in for a long one. But if it's overhead, you've got quality on both sides, you can exploit that. That's going to be so hard for batters if that's the case.
Yeah, I can remember. I was supposed to make my debut at Lords. Selectors told me I was playing at 9:30. And then at 10:15, there was a big cloud come over. Nasser said, "You're not playing. Ed Giddens is going to swing it. He's making it. He's going to play instead of you." So I had to wait 2 years for my debut. So yes, it is overhead when it comes to. Look, they had a preparation. I don't know if you've seen much of it down in Arundel. There was a bit of rain around. How do you think South Africa have prepared going into what is? I mean, like you say, it's massive in South Africa, but I think it's a big statement for world cricket if South Africa go and win this World Test Championship.
Yeah, I mean, two things. One, we were all concerned. I mean, our domestic season only finished just a few weeks ago, and Bavuma haven't played. He wanted to play a game in Bloemfontein for us against the Knights, and then it rained for 4 days, and then he hurt his elbow. Wanted to play in the final at the Wanderers. He couldn't play then. So what's it like? What's Steve Smith like? I mean, he hasn't touched a bat apparently for 3 months. He's just put a bat away, and I saw a clip of him yesterday in the nets, and he was tonking it like it was yesterday. Incredible. But yeah, I just think that all the prep is done now. They've had a good little run out now against Zimbabwe at Arundel. People spend some time on their feet, so that's all good. I just think the occasion just brings the best out of these two squads. If you're not ready for this, you will never be ready. But yeah, let's not beat around the bush. Australia are the favourites here. There's no question about it. They have just got quality all over the park. But as I say, it's a once-off scrap, and whoever gets there knows a way day 1, 1.5, 2. It's going to be hard to catch. But if South Africa win this, it'll mean so much for Test cricket in this country, because we don't at domestic level play enough of 4-day cricket. We've played one set, 7 games plus a final. There's no home and away. It's just I'm a bit concerned about that because we need to play more. But in terms of what lies ahead for South Africa is something incredibly special.
We're not going to talk about domestic cricket because we'll head down a dangerous rabbit hole. But yeah, there isn't enough, and it's not just in South Africa. But you mentioned the sense of occasion, and I wanted to just dwell on that a little bit. You had 5 or 6 years of county cricket before South Africa played their first test at Lords, and of course you were on the honours board, and you were there again 4 years later. So you're on it twice, 94 and 98. A couple of South African squads after that were overwhelmed by Lords. And remember, particularly 2008, Dale Steyn and Morne Morkel played there for the first time. And they only arrived in London 2 days before the test. And that first morning when they bowled was overwhelming. A packed house, sunny day at Lords. And 8 of the South African squad have never played at Lords. So you ought to be there, really, to put your arm around their shoulders and tell them to kind of, I don't know, soak up the occasion and ignore it at the same time. What would you tell them?
Well, I mean, they've got Stuart Broad there, who's been advising them, so I can't see of anyone better and more neutral to advise the South African team to stay calm. You look at the two teams, and I've always, when you walk through the gates at Lords, there's something that riles opposition when they play against England. They really do. Now you've got two Southern Hemisphere teams that will be even more riled. So it can send you over the edge a little bit. But I think, look, I just think that once they step over those ropes, it's now time to go do your job. It's a cricket ground. Yes, it's full of history. It's full of amazing things. Those dressing rooms tell you so many stories about who's come before you. And it's whether you're in the home dressing room or the away dressing room, it is just amazingly special. The only problem there is to find a seat on the balcony. Otherwise you're peeping through the windows all day to watch the game. But I think they'll be fine. I think Shukri Conrad's done a very good job. Shukri spent some time with Rassie Erasmus and at the Springboks alignment camp, and I think he walked away there with some really good stuff from a cultural point of view that Shukri is going to use now. Whether that's going to help or not, your actions will lie on the field and how you execute. So. But I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be absolutely fine. Once they get over those ropes and they get it on the first hour, you're into it and off you go.
Yeah, you mentioned that that balcony at Lords, the amount of backroom staff teams have now. I mean, you can't even get your top three on there. Never mind, even your medical team can't get on there. So it is a wonderful place. Lunches and everything that goes with Lords, and it comes down to moments. You mentioned AD about. I think who wins the first day has got a great chance of winning it. It might come down to moments of brilliance. And yes, Australia have got a bowling attack that sort of gone through this generation. But South Africa, for me, have got probably the most exciting bowler in world cricket other than Bumrah. And that is KG Rabada. And if he gets it right, is he key to South Africa's chances of winning this?
100%. And I think he'll be more riled now than ever before. I saw some bowling of him at Arundel. He looks an angry man. He looks motivated. And put an Australian team in front of him, he gets riled even more. So I think, forget about the news that he's been involved in. I think that will just give him an extra edge. And he's got quality around him. He has got quality around him. And, whether Bosch plays, I don't know. He's got a bit more. He's in the 140s, high 140s, 90 miles an hour. So, but KG for me, this will give him so much fire in the belly for the next few days. I think watching him at practice yesterday when Graham Smith was there talking to the batting group, he seems very relaxed, but he seems like in a good place for me, KG. He looks very motivated. But yeah, there's a lot on him, but he'll step up.
What about your coaching career, Al? I mean, I was looking back, including short-term consultancy roles. I reckon you've worked for 5 international teams, including England, Bangladesh, New Zealand, South Africa. I think it was 5 international teams. You're now at the Lions in South Africa. Do you think you'll miss international cricket coaching wise? I mean, are you looking to get back on the international platform?
Yeah, it was a interesting time. I'll put it interesting time with Bangladesh. But you've always had a front row seat in so many amazing dressing rooms, and I spent 74 days with Australia in Sri Lanka when they toured there, and I experienced that culture. And you spend so much time there, and you talk to guys, and you see how deep their cricket culture is, and how ruthless they are, and how they back themselves. And I played against that 90s team that steamrolled the rest of the world, and that England beat in 2005. I think, Harmy, you guys were amazing in that Ashes series. That was probably some of the hardest cricket I've seen being played against an unbelievable Australian team. But look, Australia, being in an international team and traveling across the world, and it's brutal, it's hard. So when I got the call from Russell Domingo to see if if I was keen to work with the Lions, and with Hashim and Jonty Rose is on board now as well. So it's really a cool backroom staff to work with, and but for now I'll just see where it takes me.
And I'll just about a quick one on your playing days. You obviously phenomenal international record when you played for South Africa, but you enjoyed some success in England playing county cricket. A few weeks ago, we did on another show for talkSPORT, a show called After the Lights Go Out. It's a mental health show. We had Dermot Reeve on, who has fallen on struggling times. That's I mean, that is an understatement. But he talked about that Warwickshire and great times that Warwickshire had. He was a wonderful leader. How did you enjoy your time playing at Warwickshire? Because there was a very, very successful team. You mentioned Gladstone Small just a short while ago. I mean, the happiest man in the world still is Gladstone Small. He gets where the sunshine doesn't. There's Gladdy on cricketing tours. But that must have been a great dressing room. And is that a time in your life you look back and think, yeah, I enjoy coaching, but this was a great time to play cricket?
Oh, there's no doubt, Harmy. I think as times changed, and when Andy Lloyd eventually retired, Tim Munton came in, and then all of a sudden Bob Woolmer took over. And when Bob took over, everything became a different ballgame completely. Phil Neal was before him, and then Bob came after him. But when Derm took over, Derm was just, I reckon he's one of the two captains I've played under, the best captains tactically and strategically that I've played under, hands down. He just had an unbelievable feel for the game, and how to develop a culture. And that's the first time we ever spoke about developing a really good environment, creating our identity better, restructuring our identity better. And then Nick Knight came on board. Those two gelled immensely well. And then just the guys we had. It was just a bunch of guys who enjoyed each other, really enjoyed each other. And I think our thinking about one-day cricket, our thinking about the red ball game changed in terms of our mindset. I mean, who's ever had a winter off where you had sweeping camps, like reverse sweep and slog sweep? And that's where Dermot went. He said, we got to change the landscape against spin, not necessarily downtown, but we're going to have to maneuver the ball different ways. And that changed everything for us in in the white ball game. But yeah, I wasn't part of the '94 team that won the treble, but I was lucky enough to have come back the next day after being told that I won't be needed after '95, because a certain Brian Charles Lara smacked attacks all over the place, and we'll go with that batter. What a world-class player he was. But yeah, and then '99 we won the double and missed out on the treble by a whisker on the very last day of the season. So yeah, it was great times, and yeah, I have great respect for Dermot. I know he's been through a very, very bad patch and back, so, but what a great one-day cricketer, and what a great cricketing brain.
Al, I'm not going to be daft enough to ask you for a prediction in a one-off test match, but just a couple of key areas. Where do you think the game could be won by South Africa? I think it's obvious where, Steve Smith or Travis Head makes 150, and Mitchell Starc and Pat Cummins and Josh Hazlewood. We know how Australia can win the game. But Rabada, obviously, and where else might South Africa pinch it?
Well, for me, and I've been watching this guy Sam Constas, or we watched the first little bit against India when he played, and it was unbelievable. But I just think the mindset of Australia, what they're going to do. You've got Khawaja, Constas, Labuschagne, Smith, Head, Green. Wow, I don't think Josh Inglis will play. Alex Carey is the preferred keeper there. But I just think Australia will fight fire with fire. I think they'll come and try and upset the likes of Rabada, try and get him off his length, play that expansive, aggressive game. I'm not sure. But once again, you don't look down, you look up, and if it's anywhere near um, uh, uh, overhead conditions, South Africa will pounce. But I just think it's absolutely 50-50. I really do. It's day one for me. Whoever gets on the front foot on day one, and if it's great bowling or batting conditions, I think if it's great batting conditions, I think Australia will really try and exploit this attack of South Africa. But it's not going to be just freewheeling. It's not. It's going to be so. You're going to have to earn the right to be on the front foot. It's so difficult because it's a like I said before, man. It's not like a series. It's a once-off. What I will say is against Australia, they are ruthless. They play this expansive brand. If you have a sniff against Australia to pounce, you've got to pounce and you've got to make it count once. You've got to. It's not often you get that chance. Australia, and when I spent in that dressing room, they always talk about getting on the front foot and do it early and stay there all the time. So I think nothing will change for me, but both teams under a game. It's difficult to predict. Yes, Australia favourites, but ask me on day 3, maybe.
I'll just finally from me, there's another big series coming up in England, leading into the Ashes. England against India. Are you over in England? I can't imagine you will stay in South Africa for the whole winter. Like Manners is getting over to England. What do you make of that series, and how do you think that one will go?
I'm so looking forward to that. I'll be over end of June, beginning of July. There's obviously that small matter of the WCL taking place at Edgbaston as well. So some of the old dogs will give it a go.
There's no shirts big enough for me, unfortunately.
I tell you what, you look skinny behind that table, though.
I tell you what, you haven't seen me from the waist. You're missing the biggest bit.
Well, listen, I think it's going to be a fascinating series between India and England, and the brand that I know it's been discussed, and a few things that England have addressed that they need to get better at. So I can't wait for that to happen. I think it's one of the biggest outside of the Ashes, England versus India. It doesn't matter whether it's in India and England, but England especially, it's going to be an awesome summer. Some awesome cricketers on stage. That's also a difficult one to predict. But the way England have taken Test cricket on, and their mindset with the red ball, that's going to be exciting against a very, very good Indian bowling attack. So yeah, I can't wait to be there for that.
Allan Donald, thank you so much for your time, and I will see you in the Green Man in Harborne.
Fantastic! I look forward to it.
That's former South African great Allan Donald. You're listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, alongside former #1 bowler in the world, Steve Harmison. Next up, we'll round up some of the week's other big stories as Rob Walter succeeds Gary Stead as New Zealand head coach. And of course, we'll bring you the final word. You're listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, along with Durham Hall of Famer Steve Harmison. And a reminder that overseas listeners can hear live ball-by-ball commentary of England's Test series against India on the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel. So make sure you head over to that and subscribe. Okay, let's talk New Zealand cricket. Gary Stead has stepped down with former South African white ball coach Rob Walter appointed as New Zealand's head coach. Gary Stead served 7 years as head coach and had some very, very significant success. He was, in every sense, steady. That was his nickname, and that's what he was. And he was massively respected for that. And I have to say that, he's only in his 50s, but he's deservedly, I think, going to take some time off. White ball success in particular, inaugural World Test champions, and then ICC tournaments, New Zealand featuring regularly, featuring in 2 finals. And when I say Rob Walter was former South African white ball coach, he lives in New Zealand. His family, his 2 young boys and wife are still there. He coached, he emigrated in 2014, I think, Harmy, 2013, 2014. So, I mean, that, New Zealanders know exactly who he is, and he's held in very high regard.
Yeah, I think that was I don't think there's any secret in what was going to happen. Even when we were there in, the back end of last year, I think everybody was predicting that the right sort of timeline for New Zealand cricket was Gary Stead was going to step down and Rob Walter was going to take over, even though Rob Walter was in a job at South Africa at the time. It's interesting, just to sort of sidestep a little bit. Henrik Klassen's quotes during the week about having a plan with Rob Walter, quickly became no plan, and then he retired because Shripi Conrad took over from the whole lot. So I think it tells you that Rob Walter is very, very close to his players when decisions are made and planning for the future. So I think it's a nice fit. Gary Stead's done a brilliant job, an absolute fantastic job, propping up that the New Zealand unit, which it's very, very difficult because they don't play a great deal of cricket. So, they let them go play around the world. They're playing the big tournaments, they're playing the IPLs and everything like that. So to bring them all back together and their ability to hit the ground running and win games and be successful in tournaments, I think that's testament to the way Gary Stead was as a person and as a leader. And it looks like Rob Walters is just going to continue the good work that Gary Stead has done.
Okay, let's hear now from Gary Stead. He was speaking a little earlier to Gold Sports' Brian Kelly.
Look, I mean, it feels a bit strange. It's been a big part of my life for the last, nearly 7 years now, and I think it feels right. It's time for a new coach and have some new ideas with the team. But look, overall, I look back extremely proud of what this team has achieved in that time, and I've got a lot of people I think that deserve thanks for that. And whilst I guess front the ship at times, then there is a lot of hard work goes in behind the scenes.
It's been an amazing 7 years for you personally. I mean, you brought that team through, and the highs for a start off, the successes have been phenomenal. What would be the highlight if there's one?
Look, I mean, a few things stand out, but the clean sweep of India last year, 3-0 in India, considering it had never been done before, is probably the biggest highlight of the moment. We won the World Test Championship. Obviously, that's another one. I think making 3 finals in ICC events in that time as well shows the consistency that the team has played with, and that's been one of the things I sort of always said, that I think Mike Hesson and Brendan McCullum had left the team in a really good spot, and what we needed to do was just keep finding ways to be consistent more often, and I think on the whole that's been done reasonably well.
And probably been very lucky too. The calibre of players that you had to coach would have been fantastic too to bring through.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you talk about some of the players that have been through in the last era, the last decade or so, you're talking about some of New Zealand's greats, and I see that as like very privileged to be able to have worked with some of those guys. And yeah, all good things come to an end at some stage, and whilst it's sad in a way, it's nice that you can reflect back and think of many, many fond memories and many fond friendships that have been made.
That's Gary Stead, sounding very much like he's at peace with that decision, and he should be. I mean, it's been 7 hard years. Let's hear then from his replacement, Rob Walter, as you said, Harmy, saying that he just would be very happy just to carry on from where Gary Stead has left off.
New Zealand have been playing very good cricket for a long period of time now, so I don't see my job as coming in to change things significantly. I just see it as sort of adding some strength and some small little additions here and there. I think essentially you play, as a byproduct of what your identity is, and that's also down to the type of players and the way that they see the game. Ultimately, it's about creating the environment for the players to be, to play their best game for their country. So that will potentially result in a more aggressive type of style here and there. But, we know the game it's not only about aggression, it's about understanding, when to make those plays and when the game requires something different of you. So, again, I don't see a huge overhaul of cricket. There's no need for it. If you look at this, just the statistical measurement of the Black Caps, they're up there with the best in the world. So we want to keep evolving our game because the game is evolving. It doesn't stand still ever, So we need to move with that and potentially move ahead of it in some spots.
That's Rob Walter talking about taking over as New Zealand head coach. On to a couple of other news items then, Harmy. ECB Chief Executive Richard Gould says that a World Club Championship is on the cards and is the next logical step in the game's evolution. I didn't see that story coming because there's so much spare time in the calendar.
Yeah, especially for club cricket. I mean, is he talking about Ashington? Is he talking about, is it going to be I really struggle to see how that one works. Where is it going to be a shorter format competition? Is it going to be a longer format competition? Let's wait and see on that one. Whenever we talk about world competitions, the first question should always be, is India involved? Especially when the ECB start talking, is India involved? And if India are involved, it might get off the ground. If India aren't involved, I mean, it's a nothing story. So let's see where it goes. But I would like to see the best teams in the world play against the best teams in the world. But like you said there, time seems to be quite sparse when it comes to the cricket calendar. And I can't see too many IPL owners wanting their players to go off and play in a World Club Championship. They're not a big fan of them playing in international cricket for the countries of their birth. I can't see them going and letting them play in a club championship as well.
Okay, very quickly, England's women beat the West Indies 3-0 and 3-0 in their two white ball series. And it was very one-sided. Let's not beat about the bush. The results had sort of people looking down at their feet, churlishly not wanting to actually watch the nature of the one-sided games. And all I would say, Harmy, is that every team goes through highs and lows. I mean, you played in teams that got belted and bounced back to win, sometimes just 6 months later. And so the West Indies women, I have to say, they've been up against what seems to be an extremely motivated England team. I mean, Charlotte Edwards has got off to a cracking start as coach, but I mean that she does seem to have got them very fired up and motivated.
Yeah, and I think there was a lot of motivation to be had as well off the back of a couple of difficult tournaments, a few difficult months. I think Nat Skipper-Brunt has led the team very, very well. Obviously, Charlotte's came in with her own ideas and philosophies, which has hit the ground running. You've look at the opposition and think, yes, it wasn't the strongest West Indies side, especially when Hayley Matthews wasn't there. So you can only beat, as the cliche says, you can only beat what's in front of you. You can start building, like I talked about the England team, when you talk about, if you want to win the Ashes, you've got to start from a starting point and build momentum and winning mentality. And I think that's what Charlotte has done. She's come in, she's ruffled a few feathers. She's made some big calls. The biggest one's probably Sophie Eccleston. And then basically said, right, this is how we're going to play. And the goal is to make sure that every time we play, we are better than what we were in a position we were last week. And I think over the course of the 2-3-0 series wins, England are going on the right path. From the West Indies point of view, yeah, there's a lot of, I think, both men and women. There's a lot of soul searching in that part of the region and that part of the world from a cricketing point of view, and what they're trying to achieve and how they're trying to achieve it. But from an England point of view, great start from both captain and coach. And fingers crossed they can build some momentum going forward. There'll be tougher challenges ahead.
Okay, it's that time of the show. It's the final word. We've got two items for you this week. The first one, it just put a big smile on my face. It's not a news story. It's not breaking news. It's a week old, but I just wanted to, I wanted you to talk about it. Really, it's a feel good story. So the London traffic gridlock before the Oval ODI against the West Indies. The West Indies were late arriving, and some of the England players, I think 3 or 4 of them, got off their coach, which was gridlocked in traffic, and hired themselves a couple of line bikes to cycle to the Oval, which is just so lovely. I've just found it a bit sad, the level of security that is around the teams now, Harmy. You know, I mean, players being told they can't go for a walk outside the hotel. They can't. You know, some players used to enjoy, depending on how far the hotel was from the ground, running back or walking to the ground. And we were in New Zealand at the end of the year. That's terrific. We actually walked with the squad at one point accidentally from the ground in Wellington to the hotel. But just the fact that they were able to get off the coach, hire a couple of line bikes and cycle to the Oval, I thought was brilliant.
It was, wasn't it? It was really refreshing to see. Sometimes we don't see, we look at these sportsmen and women and just see them as figures. They're not, they're humans. And I mean, many times, even in Nottingham, Ben Stokes and Brendan McCullum, 8 o'clock in the morning, they meet up in the next to the hotel's coffee shop and walk to the ground. You know, many times you'll see Ben Stokes walk from the hotel to the ground, and that was a good 25 minutes, half an hour walk in Nottingham. So yeah, it was great to see. It was more or less all of them. Me and Goffey got out the tube at the Oval, walking down the street, and obviously the road was closed. So obviously we knew there was something wrong. Then all of a sudden these bikes come flying past us, and it's like, I was like, Darren, that's Joss is on that one. Joss is on the front one, and they're just waving here as they went past. It's like the Pokemobile going past, and it was brilliant to see. And I love this bunch, right? I hate criticizing them, and I do criticize them because that's the nature of our job. I love this bunch. I really love this cricket team, both the red ball team and the white ball team, because the players are so good as people. I think we've got a lot to like about and we should applaud a lot of the human element of our team, whether it's Joe Root, the biggest name, all the way down to some of the younger players. They're very, very rounded characters, very grounded individuals, and humble to that. And it just showed that, well, if the bus is broken, it don't matter. Let's get a bike. Let's get to the ground. Who cares? Where the West Indies possibly didn't think that way. Hence why they were late.
And the final word, you know how much I love getting off the beaten track, Harmy. There's nothing excites me more than a Sierra Leone against Uganda T20 game, but not quite so far off the beaten track. There's currently a tri-series, 50 overs tri-series going on between Nepal, the Netherlands and Scotland, and there's some cracking storylines coming out of that.
There is, yeah. I mean, the first game was hilarious. Nepal won the first game on the last ball. It was then he wanted to win off one, and the guy bowled a wide. I think wicketkeeper fumbled it down the leg side, and then they ran. So obviously they could have been run out, and everything, the commotion that goes with that. And then it got to the next game, Nepal and Scotland. And Scotland obviously won that game off the last ball. So I mean, the games. I love when the emerging nations play, because you're spreading the word. We're playing cricket. It's not just about England, Australia, and India. As you know and wrote about it most days, that this game is played by all 4 corners of the world. Some unbelievable countries play cricket. And to see Scotland, Nepal, and Netherlands, trying to get better by playing against each other in a white ball competition is great. But that first game, the last ball, I thought was comedy. And Nepal won because obviously there was a wide bowl, but there was a little bit of a calamity at the end when they tried to run and nearly ran each other out.
Comedy gold it was. You've been listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, alongside former England fast bowler Steve Harmison, and we'll be back at the same time next week to look back at the World Test Championship final and build up to the first test between England and India at Headingley, which overseas listeners can hear live on the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel.